Hello and welcome back to the channel. For today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you how to cut and sew a palazzo pant with side pockets. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. So let's start. So to fold your trouser is your lap or thigh measurement divided by 2 plus 2 inches allowance. You can go ahead and add 3 inches allowance, but trouser does not require much allowance for folding. So after that, I'll go ahead to get the full length of my trouser. So the full length of my trouser that I'm working with is 41, and I went ahead to add 2 inches for folding allowance. So if you're making a high-waisted trouser, you're going to be minusing your band from it, 2 inches from there for your band. But if you're just making a normal waist trouser, you're just going to start your measurement from your waistline. So the next step from here is to get your crotch. So to get your crotch for a normal waisted trouser is your hip divided by 4, but for a high waist trouser is your hip divided by 3. So most times after getting my crotch, I end up adding 1 inch to it because I don't want it to be too tight on me. Another way of getting your crotch is sitting on a hard surface, and you're just going to measure it from your waist to that hard surface. So I'll go ahead and write this out as crotch. So the next thing is to get your front crotch extension. So to get that is your hip divided by 4. Whatever you have, you're going to divide it by 4 again. So for example, if your hip is 40, you're going to divide 40 by 4 and you're going to have 10 inches. That same 10 inches, you're going to divide it by 4 again and you have 2.5 and you're going to mark. So you're just going to do that for your hip. So I'll mark it at my crotch line and I'll extend it to the waistline. Then I'll go ahead to connect the line. So next step is to get your hip measurement, and I'm just going to mark 8 inches from there. After marking that 8 inches from my crotch line, I'm going to be going up by 2 inches, and from there I'm just going to draw my crotch curve. So just like I said in my previous video, you can go down by 1 or 2 inches to draw your thigh line, or you can go ahead and leave it at your crotch. You still have the same effect on the trouser. So next is to start inserting my measurement at the waistline. I'm going to mark my waist measurement divided by 4, and I will add 1 inch for stitching allowance. So trouser does not require much allowance. Going down to my hip point, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to add 1 inch sewing allowance. So after that, I'll go down to my crotch and I will go ahead to insert my thigh measurement. I will also repeat it at that 2 inches I came down for my thigh measurement. Why I'm doing this is just to show you that whether you mark your thigh at your crotch or 2 inches below, 1 inch below, you're still going to have the same effect on your trouser. So for your lap measurement, you'll be dividing it by 2 and you'll be adding 1 inch allowance. So the next step I'll take is to mark my waist to knee point. So after marking my waist to knee point, the next step is to go in by 1 inch or 1.5 inch at your knee. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is just to go ahead and to connect to my knee point. So after marking that, I'll go down to the lower part of my trouser and I will still go in by 1 inch or 1.5 inch. Any one you prefer is still okay. So from that point, I'll connect it to the lower point. So the next step I'm going to take is to connect from my crotch down to the hip and down to the waistline. So the next thing to do is to measure your knee round. So after measuring your knee round, you're going to insert the measurement you have at that point divided by 2, and you're going to go ahead and add 1 inch for sewing allowance. So whatever I have at my knee point, I'm going to go ahead to extend it to the lower part of my trouser because this is a palazzo trouser and you want it to be free. So I'll go ahead to extend my measurements down to my knee point and connect it back to the crotch. But in some cases, there's some palazzo trouser that the knee point is a bit smaller than the lower part. That is, you're going to take your actual knee measurement without it being too free, and then you're going to go ahead and make the lower part of your trouser a bit bigger. So let's continue with this palazzo pant. So after doing this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the upper part of this trouser, and I'm going to be minusing 1 inch at this point. So after minusing that 1 inch, I'm going to slant it up to my waistline. So after this, my trouser pattern is ready, and the next thing is just to cut it out. So after cutting out my trouser, I went ahead to place it on another fabric. So we'll be cutting the back. So on the waistline, I'll be extending it up by 2 inches because of the butt at the back. You can as well use 2.5 inches, is also okay. So next, I will be extending the crotch part of my back trouser by 2 inches. So I will do that till I get to my crotch point. So after extending that line, when I get to this part of my crotch, I'm going to measure 2 inches, and I'm going to extend that line this way, and from there I'm going to connect my curve down to that point. Going back to the upper part of the trouser, so you're going to take the actual measurement you have on your front waistline, and you're going to place it, and you're going to mark it out at the back. So now from that 2 inches we went up by, you're going to slant it down to your waistline, and you're going to be marking exactly your waist measurement on the trouser. So at this point, if you want to add your 1 inch dart allowance, it is okay, but for this pattern I'm not using a dart for the back side of the trouser. So what I'm going to do right now is to trace out the hip of this, and I will extend it. I will open up my front pattern, and I will extend it to the waistline. With that way, the waistline will be the same, so when you're sewing your dress, you won't have one part that is bigger, or the front waistline or the back waistline is bigger than the other one. But if you're going to add that, by the time you close up your dart intake, your waistline will be exactly the same. So after I'm done doing this, the next step I'm going to take is just to go ahead to mark 2 inches in front of this, in front of the trouser. So I'm going to mark these 2 inches to the end of my trouser, and I'll go ahead to connect it. So after marking it out, the next step is to go ahead to trace or cut out your trouser following the pattern, and at the back you're going to trace exactly what you have at the back of the front trouser. Getting to the hip line, you're going to open it up this way, and you're going to go ahead to trace the hip at the back. So after cutting out my pattern, the next step is to join it. So what I'm going to do is to take the front part this way, and I'll go ahead to close up the crotch area with 1/2 inch, and I'll go ahead to fold the lower part also. Going to the back also, I'm going to go ahead to fold the mount, and I'll join also with 1/2 inch, since the zipper allowance will be on the side. So after joining with 1/2 inch, right now it's time for us to attach the pockets in front. So to attach the pocket, I went ahead to cut out 2 pieces for each side, and the length of the pocket is 7 inches by 13, and I went ahead to add 1/2 inch round. So after adding 1/2 inch, I have 8 inches by 14. What I'm going to do next is, from this part, I'm going to measure 2.5 inches this way. So after measuring that, I'm going to go down and I will measure 7 inches. So after doing that, what I'll do is to take my ruler, and I'm going to go ahead to connect this line. So I'll just draw out this line this way. So after doing that, what I'll do is, so the next step is to take one piece of this, and I'm going to place it underneath it. So after placing it underneath it, make sure it's the right side that is facing up. So because that part will be showing on your main trouser, on the front part of your trouser. So after doing that, you're going to hold it down with pin so that it won't be shifting. So you're going to measure the actual waist of your trouser because you're going to be replacing it later when you're fixing the pocket. So after measuring it, what I have is 9.7 inches. It is very important to take that measurement because when you're replacing your pocket, you're supposed to get the exact shape in front. If not, the waistline of your trouser will be bigger than your waistline. To know exactly the waist of your trouser. So after doing that, you're going to go ahead to cut it. So why we are doing this is to get the actual shape of the front of the trouser so that by the time you put your pocket, you will still have the same thing in front. So now I'll be introducing this other one. So make sure the part that is facing up is the right side because it will be appearing on the front part of your trouser. So the next thing you're going to do right now is so after placing it, what I'm going to do now is to cut out that 2.5 inches I went in by, and that 7 inches mark that I connected. I'm going to trace it out on the waistline. Sorry, I'm using these tiny scissors. I'm not actually at home, so I'm just recording with what I have available. So I'm just going to cut it out and I'm going to bring out that part. So you're going to place it this way and you stitch with 1/2 inch. So after I'm done stitching, this is what I have. So you're going to be flipping it inside, but before I do that, I'll go ahead to iron it so that it's going to relax. So you have to iron it for it to relax, if not it will be coming out. Next, I'll be introducing this one that we trimmed off the side. So why I trimmed it off is so that it will fit to the shape of what the actual trouser is that we cut out. And also remember, we measured out what we have on the waistline before cutting it so that you're going to get your actual measurement after attaching it. So I'm just going to place it this way on it. So now I'll be bringing in my tape, and what I will do right now is to measure the waistline of my trouser. So you're going to get that initial measurement you have before. So you're going to keep adjusting the fabric underneath it until you get that 9.5 inches or 9.7, depending on whatever you get at your waistline. So after doing that, you're going to go ahead and pin it to secure it, and you're going to make sure the hip area is touching. The hip area is meeting, and I'm just going to hold it down also. So next, you're going to flip it this way. So I'll be showing you how to stitch your pocket. So what you're going to do right now is you're going to go ahead and stitch with 1/2 inch at the lower part by the sides also, and you're going to shift it a little at this upper part and stitch with 1/2 inch to close it up, and then you can just hold it up on top to avoid it from shifting while sewing. So I'll go ahead to do that, and I'm going to bring it to show you. So I'm done stitching up my pocket, and this is what I have right now. So as you can see, you can even dip your hands inside it, and this is what the back looks like. And I've also gone ahead to sew for the other side. So this is what I have after sewing. So please bear with me if the material is not straightened out. I'm having difficulties working with this material. So I've also stitched up the back, and right now what we're going to do is to stitch or join the pattern together. So I'm going to place, so on the left side I'll be attaching zipper. So I'm going to measure about 6 or 7 inches, and I'll leave it for my zipper, and I'll go ahead to stitch with 1/2 inch to the end. Moving over to the other side also, I'm going to stitch with 1/2 inch to the end of the fabric. So I'm going to do that and I'll bring it to show you. So I'm done stitching that, and for the inner side, I'm just going to go ahead and stitch also with 1/2 inch round it this way, and you're going to pin it. If you're having difficulties to stitch it together, you just pin it with 1/2 inch, and I'll go ahead to attach my zipper by the sides. So this is my trouser pattern. I've gone ahead to iron it out, and I attached zipper by the side. So the next thing we'll be working on is the band. So right now you're going to measure your waist round and you're going to add extra 2 inches. You're going to go ahead and open up the waistline and you place it this way. Leave ½ inch in front of the zipper on one side and you're going to leave about 1.5 inches on the other side of the zipper, and you're going to stitch with ½ inch. Sorry, I forgot to mention that the width of my band is 4 inches and the length is the waist circumference plus 2 inches. So after stitching it, this is what I have on one side that have 1.5 inches, and I'm going to fold it in this way. After folding it, I'm going to fold it on top of that one and I'm going to top stitch. So I'm going to repeat the same thing round. I will fold in my band and I'll use it to close up the rough edge at the back of the dress where I join the lower part of the trouser to the band. So I'll continue doing it till I get to this other side. On this other side that has ½ inch, you just fold up to close the zipper and you're going to fold this way and you're going to top stitch on it with ½ inch, and you're going to close up your sewing allowance to the end. So after doing that, you can go ahead to add button or hook and eye to one part of the band. So after sewing, this is my trouser. I'm done sewing. So if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to hit on the subscribe button if you haven't yet subscribed. Thank you.